All right, well, I've had to do a little bit of work off camera. I didn't want to leave it set up while I was doing my grinding and stuff because I'd wreck my gears. So where I left off was I just finished screwing down this top panel here. And since then I came back, I pulled out all the screws and the fender washers. And then this morning I came in and with a 4-inch grinder, came in and basically ground down about 2 inches on either side of the seam, running all around this panel that we had, cut out and then replaced. It made a hell of a mess. You should have seen me before I blew my head off. It's just, I had fiberglass dust and shit just like falling down. So I still look a little ghost-like. One thing I had noticed after I pulled out all of my screws on this top panel was there were a few areas that I don't know if the bottom of this piece when I glued it down had a little bit of a dimple coming up, but there were a few places that just when you tapped it with the hammer, it didn't bond. It didn't have a solid bond. So I marked all those spots, and then I came in when I was running around with the grinder and basically ground down all the way down to, or ground the glass away all the way down to the new core that we had just installed. So I think I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 little patches, and they're about the size of a 50-cent piece. The glass I'm going to be using is what's called 1708 biaxial fiberglass, and the reason I'm going to be using that is because it's essentially like laying 3 layers of glass in one shot. You've got 2 layers, one on top of the other, that are crisscrossed like this. And by crisscrossing like this, it gives you a very strong, very stiff laminate. And then on the bottom of that is a little thin layer. I want to say it's 0.75 ounce CSM, or chop strand matting. So, like I said, you've essentially got 3 layers in one. So this glass we're going to be laying around is just strictly to keep that seam, this cut seam, from printing back through and opening back up after we've primed and painted all of this. So I'm going to let the building air out for a little bit more, and then I'm going to come up with the acetone, wipe everything down, and then we're going to start laying up our epoxy and our glass. All right, we're back. I've already gone through and I've pre-cut the 1708, or the fiberglass I'm going to be using to go around all the seams on this cutout. And I've also come through and wiped everything down with acetone. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up some epoxy, and I decided I was going to mix in a little bit of a filler for filling in these low little dimples where I had to take it down and kind of fill up a void underneath the glass that we laid in. So I'm going to mix in a little bit of the 404, not a lot. I don't want this to get thick at all, but I do want to add a little bit of filler in here just to give it a little bit of added strength, compressive strength, I guess. And I'm going to pour it in each of these little dimples. In total, I think there's 2, 4, 6, 8 of them, give or take. And let that kind of seep in, do its thing. I'm going to working in under the laminates with a brush. And then I'll be coming in and starting at the lowest point on this part, starting with the lowest points, build them, throw in some little pieces of glass just to build it up, and then the last pieces of glass that I'll be laying down are going to be these longer full-length strips, 1708. Got a lot of junk vehicles running around here that need mufflers. I should probably close my door. Oh yeah, people shooting guns too. I don't know if the mic's going to pick that one up. I live in the woods, if you haven't guessed. All right, this looks good. It's a nice wet consistency. It'll flow in underneath that glass without any problems. Just kind of putting in a little blob about the size of a quarter. All right, so now I'm just going to take a regular old chip brush and walk around and just kind of work the epoxy in underneath the fiberglass. I've gotten all that worked in, underneath any of the little nooks and crannies, and and everything looks good. So now I'm going to start putting in some little pieces of glass, and all I'm looking to do is just get a little bit of build up or a little bit of fill in there before I start laying over my larger sheets of the 1708. So we're going to start tearing some glass and tapping them in. All right, well, I guess it's time to close my shop door. I've got birds flying in here now. And these things are the dumbest birds I have ever seen. They'll fly in through my back door that's cracked open maybe 6 inches, but yet they can't figure out how to fly back out through a 20-foot tall door that's 20 feet wide. Idiots. For this center patch here, because it's a little bit larger and I'm still working with chop strand matting, I laid down, this is what you're seeing here, this is I guess my second layer. I laid down my first, wetted it out really well with the epoxy, and then now I'm going to use what's called a fin roller. This is basically, it's a little metal roller. You can get them out of plastic too, but it's got little fins, and you use this for, I guess, pushing out air that's trapped in between laminates when you're laying a bunch of it up. So that's exactly what I'm going to be doing here. I'm going to be using it to push the air out, as well as push the epoxy into the chop strand matting. And when you're doing this, I've seen a lot of people, they'll take these rollers and just start, going around like this, just racing it around. That's not how you use these. Nice, slow rolls. I usually start from the center and work my way out. If you run this thing around too fast, you actually start lifting the glass back up and introduce air pockets. And as I'm rolling this, I can hear the air popping out of here. And just a little heads up, if you ever bring your boat in someplace to get work done, you see the guys in the yard running this roller back and forth like they're, racing the clock or whatever. Take your boat somewhere else, because they are not going to give you a good job. Rolling this out is not a race. It's not something you do quickly. Now here I'm left with a perfect laminate. There's no air in here, none. Good. All right, one big tip for you when you're using these, you gotta keep them clean, because otherwise they won't roll they just won't roll. Now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be mixing up some more unthickened epoxy, and I'm going to actually pour it all the way around the perimeter where I'm going to be laying up my 1708. I'm going to make a nice little bed of epoxy in here. I'm going to lay the glass down on top of that, and then I'm going to use my fin roller to force that epoxy up through this laminate and wet it out. So that's the plan. See how well this works. I gotta say, this is a little bit of an experiment. I've never tried it this way. There isn't any reason it shouldn't work. It's just kind of a nice, clean way to do this, actually. Works pretty slick. All right, well, now I'm gonna start pouring this out before it kicks off in the bucket. Well, let me zoom in on the glass that we just laid up. And it doesn't, it doesn't look pretty, but it doesn't have to look pretty. Like I said, this is all going to be covered up with thickened epoxy with 410 filler. So this is all going to go bye-bye here on my next coat. All this layer has to do is just keep that cutout, that cut line crack thing from printing through. That is it. It's the only job. Boo. One thing I wanted to mention about the 1708 is I had mentioned that there's the two top layers that are crisscrossed like this, and then on the bottom layer there's I guess a 0.75 layer of chop strand matting. Now when you're laying this material down, you want to lay it down so that the chop strand matting is face down. Think of the chop strand matting as a bit of a glue layer or kind of a bonding layer because it typically holds a lot of resin. Having that sit down there with the chop strand matting, it's just going to help it stick a little bit better. But it's a pretty heavy, it's a heavy material, the 1708. Each layer of it, I'm going to have to double check my facts here, but I want to say each layer of it has 23 ounces of fiberglass per layer. That is a lot. And the way that the glass is orientated in here, it just makes it an extremely, extremely strong type of glass. And it conforms to curves and radiuses pretty well. Not quite as tightly as just a single layer of chop strand matting, but it works very, very well. Really the only two types of glass that I work with are the 1708 and the 1.5 ounce chop strand matting. So it's 8:30 now. At night, oh yeah, I stayed. And I'm going to take some thickened epoxy with the 410 filler and I'm just going to fill this in a little bit, just because a couple of reasons. It's going to give me some easy sanding tomorrow morning. And that way I don't have to come back in and scuff up or remove some of this glass before I can lay anything up tomorrow. So if at least I can get the 410 filler over top of this, then all I'll be sanding tomorrow morning would be this fairing compound, and then the thickness of this glass will be unchanged. So taking one for the team. 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. This stuff, this batch is going to be mixed fairly thick. I don't want it running around on me. Because I'm going to lay this up and then I'm leaving. Take a shower, get all this fiberglass and crap off me. I'm not so sure I'm going to make it home before my daughter goes to bed, but we shall see. It is Friday night. It's Friday night, probably 9 by now. And I'm sitting here still working. Something wrong with this. That's a pretty good stiff bat. Ooh, it's already starting to get warm. So there it is. It's pretty thick. I'm gonna get this out of the bucket. And if you pull it, it pulls across. Woo. I'm tired. It's been a long day. I'm hungry. Did I mention that I'm hungry? Really hungry. I haven't eaten anything today. What the hell is that on my face? Hey, a piece of fiberglass. Good night.